this video, I want to talk about the philosophy of transhumanism and how transhumanism, defined as the marriage of, matter and spirit, or the marriage of humans and robots, or the creation of conscious so-called robots, is totally incompatible with any theistic philosophy, what to speak of the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. So I just saw the movie Free Guy. I don't know if you're aware of that movie. It came out last August with Brian, what's his name? Anyway, famous guy, famous movie. And I'll briefly tell you what the storyline is to make my point. And that is, again, that transhumanism is just not compatible with the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. And I'll show you some clips from it, right? So basically, here's the storyline. So the hero of the movie is actually not a human being, but he's a program. He's literally a program, a created, furniture, a human furniture inside a video game, right? And he's like the non-conscious decoration of the video game. He's got no free will, obviously, because he's basically a robot. He's just a created software, all right? That's part of the video game, into which there's conscious human beings who live in the real world and who have their avatar players who go into that video game and fight with each other or play with each other, have adventures and stuff. But the hero of the movie, as I said, he's just a decoration. He's just a peon, a non-conscious automated decoration that's part of the video game, right? And that does the exact same thing every day, every time the video game boots up, so to speak. So where it gets kind of tricky in the storyline and very deceptive when it comes to philosophy is when one of these, these sort of CPU created characters becomes conscious. How? Of course, there's no explanation given, but the guy who actually created the video game tells the bad guy of the movie, we don't know how, but one of these, this is the first conscious, live, artificial intelligence beings, I mean, that theme comes up again and again and again, in the movie, Terminator and the Johnny Depp movie that came out 5 years ago, where he uploads his consciousness onto a big server. 2001 by Stanley Kubrick. I mean, the whole theme of robots taking over or becoming conscious is not a new thing. But here, watch this scene. Watch this clip.
I'm on. I don't care who it is. Boom.
You can't.
I'm sorry, what?
You can't.
Why not?
Because he's not a hacker, Antoine. He's an NPC.
You trying to tell me that all this shit about a self-aware NPC is real?
Yeah, I don't know how or why, but he's real.
So you see, there's this thing. The first created artificial intelligence life. It's not a hacker. In other words, that person, as people think in the movie at first, they think, oh, he's another player who just hacked into the game and is really doing. No, it's actually part of the original game, and that's just nonsense. It's nonsense because the point is, according to the Bhagavad Gita, consciousness is not a product of matter. And when I say consciousness, I mean the ability to think, to make really free choices. So it's still, the whole thing is deceptive, like the free guy, as if a robot can all of a sudden become fully conscious. That just never can happen. And why? Because again, we take it on faith. And we also see that, as far as artificial intelligence goes, things such as sentiments, feelings, freedom of choice to love or to not love, or to make, spontaneous creations and stuff like that, that can never happen in a robot, in a created being. And again, and then there's this fundamental premise under it, and that is that life is not material. Consciousness, what's makes this body and what makes me speak to you right now, is, according to the Bhagavad Gita, a conscious self inside this physical body. And this conscious self is not a product of matter. It's spiritual. It's an emanation from God. It's an eternal emanation from Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mamevamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana, that every living being, you, me, we are eternal part and parcels. We're eternal amsas, or small little vibhinamsas. We're eternal parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord Krishna. and we have free will eternally, and we are totally made of spirit. We are 100% made of spirit, and we happen to be in these physical, robotic bodies. I mean, I'm not against, a body being compared to a robot, to a machine. I mean, again, in the Bhagavad Gita 1861, Krishna says, Ishvara sarvabhutanam riddesha arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. Yantra means a machine. So Krishna himself, God, compares this body we're in to a machine. But the point is, and as Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, explains so well in his Life Comes From Life conversations. I really recommend you check that out. You can just type Life Comes From Life on Google, Swami Prabhupada, you'll find the conversations. He made this point again and again that life or consciousness is not a product of matter, and therefore, however intelligent you may be in creating a software, you can never make that software or that created person in the digital world fully conscious. But that's what this movie claims. Right? Some movies go as far as claiming that not only can robots become completely conscious, but they can even unite with humans and have babies. We see that in the latest Blade Runner number 2. Remember in Blade Runner, there's this issue of humans versus replicants. And replicants are like human beings that are actually robots, but they look and act and smell like humans, but they're actually robots, and they're bad people. They're enemies. And so there's this test. By which you can tell whether a replicant is a human or not. And that's precisely by asking the replicant theoretical questions of what the replicant would do when it comes to emotions, when it comes to spontaneity. And so when they see that the replicant cannot answer those questions, boom, they shoot it down, they kill it, or they destroy it because it's a replicant. So, but in the latest Blade Runner movie, you literally have an offspring, a so-called conscious being that's created as a result of a sexual union between a robot, a replicant, and a human being, right? But again, according to Bhagavad Gita, life is not, you cannot unite with a robot and have a robot, engender life, because again, life comes from life, not from matter. Life is a symptom of consciousness, which is not material. So how can something that's material to begin with and always will be material, however sophisticated and programmed and pre-programmed it is, how can something that's basically made of inert matter all of a sudden come to life? What to speak of engender another life, another soul, right? It's just really bad philosophy, and the result of that is that people in society start to have these feelings of empathy for machines. The normalizations of, the humanization of machine is the propaganda. And that propaganda is really dangerous. Look at this scene. Look at this clip.
If we reboot server, then he's just going to revert back to a regular non-player guy.
Solution.
Antoine, you're talking about terminating the first confirmed artificially intelligent life form right now, okay?
Honey, shush.
So you see, there's this moral thing, like the programmer saying, wait a second, no, you're actually gonna destroy the first ever created artificial intelligence, self-reflected being, as if a freaking computer program all of a sudden has rights, birthrights, on the same par as an actual sentient being like you or me, right? So it's really detrimental, because it's making young people who watch this movie, for example, believe that, hey, consciousness again it's nothing material, there's nothing spiritual about it, and therefore, since humans really are non-different from machines, we should start respecting machines and giving the same kind of moral standing to a freaking computer program as to a human being, right? And that's just wrong. Now, fortunately, and this is my last point. I made the first point here that this transhumanism philosophy is incompatible with the Bhagavad Gita, and now I'm going to make a second point, and a final point. This is a point how, fortunately, in Hollywood, some movies, as actually Free Guy, make the ultimate distinction that there is a difference ontologically between sentient human beings and robots or machine, right? and that's good. That's a saving grace, as opposed to, for example, Blade Runner 2, where there's like this idea that replicants can actually have children with human beings, or that life is can be created from matter. In this Mr. Free Guy movie, at the end, the computer program who so-called became conscious is having a dialogue. Check this out. Check this scene.
I love you, Billy. Maybe that is my program talking, but guess what? Someone wrote that program. I'm just a love letter to you. Somewhere out there is the author.
So you see, he's telling this woman avatar, or the avatar of this real human woman, that, actually I'm programmed to say I love you. I'm programmed to tell you I love you. But actually there's a programmer, the guy who wrote me. He's real, he's human, he's conscious, and he loves you in your real, original, non-avatar form. So what's established here is that, hey, robots ultimately are programmed, and they cannot genuinely feel what an actual sentient being, a soul inside a material body, feels. And this throws us back to the latest, or one of the latest Terminator movies. If you notice, in one of the latest Terminator movie, the Terminator has, Schwarzenegger has become a good guy. And he's married. He's married to a woman who has a child from a previous wedding.
Caring for this family gave me purpose, because without purpose, we are nothing.
Touching story. Does it have a point?
While raising Medeo, my son, I began to understand what I'd taken from you.
Wait, you grew a conscience?
The equivalent to one, yes.
So at least they don't go as far as, the union of a robot, namely the Terminator, with a human. She has a child from a previous, marriage or union with another human, not a robot. But at one point in the dialogue, one of the heroes of the movie asks the Terminator, well, are you able to love? Can you love? And the Terminator, very interestingly and aptly, says, yes, I'm able to love, but not like you guys, not like you humans. So there's this distinction, fortunately, that's made between, the quote-unquote love that a robot feels and the real love that a sentient human, which is a soul inside a human body, or a soul inside a dog body, or a soul inside a tree body, is able to feel. In other words, sentience, consciousness, will always be different from, however sophisticated they may be, programmed robots or programmed computer softwares. There's an ontological, eternal difference between life or consciousness and dead matter, however sophisticated and pre-programmed that matter may be. And so you and I, we should, really be convinced and be confident that well, as I said, that the words of Krishna are right. That when Krishna makes a distinction between dead matter and conscious life, and establishes the premise that conscious life is a symptom of the soul, and that the soul is eternal, the soul is spiritual, the soul has nothing to do with neurons and protons and the laws of physics and the laws of chemistry. The soul is, par excellence, transcendental to the three modes of nature. The soul is always beyond matter, and that's who we are. If we stick to that thought, then we'll be able to well, first of all, to defend ourselves from these ultra atheistic and misleading philosophies that bring everything down to the level of matter, and in that same stroke upgrade matter to the status of life and consciousness, with all sorts of crazy, abhorrent, consequences, such as the idea that, a computer program can fall in love with a human, or a human can fall in love with a robot, and so on. And this way we can stay strong in our theistic conviction that we are souls and that we're connected to the Supreme Soul, God. Hare Krishna. Take care.
1, 2, 3, 4.